dreams, and the future, and the spiritual realm. I hope this video is on because I haven't got the notification, but we'll find out. So let's go on with the subject anyway, and we'll see how it works. Oh, I know it's on now. I got the signal from my phone. That's what I was waiting for. Okay, the subject today is dreams. And this is Positive Vibes Enterprise. And I'm Tom Goodwin, and Astrogoodwin on the internet. And when it comes to dreams, I spent quite a few years on the internet at Yahoo Answers interpreting dreams. And so I had a lot of practice at it. And I was pretty good at the beginning, because when you have a spiritual focus for over 20 years at that time, you're gonna be tuned into dreams, because the dreams are basically your connection with the spiritual realm. And the spiritual has to do with emotions and feelings, and so do dreams. And so I am in the top 10 still at Yahoo Answers as Astrogoodwin, and you can look and find out. You can actually find out about my dream interpretation at Yahoo Answers, and actually see all the dreams I've interpreted there. So I have a body of information there. I'm only it's just good to look up Astrogoodwin on the internet, because I have so much information out there on so many subjects, and it's just I'm just adding more stuff out there, but people aren't really paying attention to it, and I'm trying to get people to do, and that has to do with my personal dream, my personal purpose to reach people with my spiritual vision of how the world could be if it would advance further spiritually. So that's sort of like my overall dream. But a lot of people think, oh, I had a prophetic dream. I saw the future. And then what will happen is, when something comes into being in their life, they'll say, oh, I had a dream about that, and that dream predicted that. But the thing is, the memory is not perfect. It tends to be altered a certain amount. And so you tend to, a lot of times, see things as being clearer than they actually are. So the dream may not have been that accurate, but when things actually happen, you may think it's more accurate than it is. But the future is not nailed down. It's not written in stone. The past is written in stone. That's why you have the archaeologists and the fossils and everything, because the past is written in stone. But the future, it's what you make of it. The future is where you have the ability to make change, to transform things. And if you ever buy into the idea that the future is already preordained, then you're taking away all human ability to make a difference here. So you're disempowering human beings. And a lot of the traditions and religions in the past have disempowered human beings. And look at how the world's a mess. You're going to blame it all on God because human beings, are not creating anything according to people that believe, things are already preordained. So you have to blame it on God. Well, it's not God, it's us, and how well we are coping with the reality that God has provided for us. So I'm not going to, it's so wonderful we have a future we can change and we can look forward to. That can be a better one. That's what I'd say to people who think it's all preordained. It's good that we have something we can do something about. And one's intuition plays a strong role. The quality of one's intuition plays a strong role in the level of how accurate one's dreams will represent things virtually around you. It can easily get distorted by your biases, by your ideologies, by your beliefs, by your desires, your emotions, and whatever addictive energy, and even your delusions. They can all affect you because your subconscious programming or your spiritual programming will affect the types of dreams you have and the images and the analogies and the symbols you use. Because the emotions and feelings which power the spiritual tend to be expressed not in ordinary language, but in symbols, analogies, and images. And the poetry and songs are similar. They come from that dream-like energy. So when people think they look at their dream and they say, well, this is the way it is, and they take the dream too literally. They're looking at it and they're saying, well, this must be telling me something straightforward about the world and about what's going on and all this stuff. Well, you got to be careful about that because dreams are not literal in the sense that the spiritual does not translate that readily in a literal form into from our spiritual program we're picking it up to our brain. It has to be a translation. And the spiritual, you learn a lot about the spiritual in the sense that the images and the visions and so forth. That's what the spiritual is all about. When you have beliefs that are strong, you're going to project. You're going to project things spiritual. There's a lot of spiritual projection that happens. When a lot of people believe things, there's an awful lot more spiritual projection because the more psychic support a vision, an image, a dream, or even a spiritual theory has, the more it's going to be represented in the spiritual realm, and the more it's going to come out in dreams and popular images that are created in movies or documentaries or conspiracy type representations of reality that are put in movies or you read about. They can affect one's dreams a lot too. So whatever you buy into or whatever you watch a lot will affect what you are going to likely dream about. The dreams are going to be different in different eras depending on what images are going around. Because whatever images are going around and circulating that people put an energy into become alive in the spiritual realm and they're reinforced and they're going to come out in one's dreams. And if you're unique like me, you can have dreams that are different than other people, and that gives you a different perspective. And sometimes the best people at analyzing something are the outsiders that have a certain objectivity because they're not so immersed in it. A lot of times people say, oh, you've never experienced being a killer, so how do you understand a killer? Well, I'm glad I've never been a killer. And I think that people that haven't done certain things, a lot of times, because of the objectivity, are capable of understanding things better than the people that are immersed in the type of behavior so much. So the outsider, the person like me that is so disconnected in so much way from the world because my abilities are different and the world didn't open up as many opportunities for, gets a different perspective, and that can be very helpful to have that outsider perspective. And one of the things about intuition, you could say, well, you're receiving all this stuff from the spiritual, and your intuition is going to have to, accurately represent it. And intuition it can be biased and distorted and everything else, and it's not always that reliable. The people, you have to use it, you have to train it. And I'm very much into using intense meditative training to develop my intuition so to be more accurate, and then altering one's spiritual theories so they're more aligned with how the spiritual actually works, so that your intuition will will function better because it will understand what it's dealing with. So I'm very much into that, which the more you evolve spiritually, the more you're going to be able to have dreams that are helpful to you, that will give you information that's accurate, and the more you will understand the deceptions and the things that go on in the spiritual, or the way a lot of times what's happening on the spiritual level does not interface very well with reality because there's all kinds of things happening in the spiritual that are more like games and amusement and energies like that. Not everything in the physical world works that well. There's all kinds of things that are messed up in the physical world. And the same thing true for the spiritual world. The idea that there's some kind of perfection in the spiritual world, forget it. Perfection doesn't exist. And that's what's perfect about the universe, is it's not perfect. And because it's not perfect, we can always improve and we can always get better. So dreams are not perfect, and you have to develop yourself spiritually to get more accurate dreams. Now, when it comes to near-death experiences, that's sort of like dream energy too, trying to represent the spiritual. So all near-death experiences are not going to be the same. They're going to be like as different as dreams. A lot of them will be similar, and the reason why they will be similar is because people who have similar beliefs are going to have similar dreams, and a lot of our reality, a lot of the beliefs that are part of our reality in this world that predominate are very similar. So people are going to have very similar near-death experiences because they have similar spiritual ideologies or theories programmed into them. But when you have a near-death experience, it's going to be symbolic or whatever, but in a sense, those symbols are real in a sense, in that they do represent something that is happening on the spiritual level. It's just that they represent it based on how well you are able to receive it. And the fact that you're near-death does not mean your intuition gets any better. You don't get anything free. In other words, your intuition that you have developed is going to stay at the level you developed when you leave the body. It's not going to improve. It's going to stay where it's at. Of course, when you have a near-death experience, it's going to be intense, and it's going to sort of like how good your intuition will be will really, come out then, and it will sort of like reinforce wherever you are at spiritually. But for people that are not connected to their spiritual side, a near-death experience can connect them a lot more with what's really going on inside of them that they may be cutting themselves off from. A lot of times people want to deny the spiritual, and then they have a near-death experience and the denial got broken. And that can be a life-changing event. Now, I had 2 near-death experiences, and one, because I am so different and I'm trying to present something that has a lot of resistance in this world, I'm under pressure when I'm trying to reach the public, and I wasn't strong enough to deal with the pressure, so I have a heart that neurologically doesn't have the best rhythm, and I was trying to keep it from losing it under pressure, which I've done when I've done intense exercise in the past. I'd do the exercise, then I'd come back and I'd meditate, and I'd do my breathing to steady my heart because I knew my heart had been pushed too hard and I was in danger. Well, when I was under pressure trying to get my ideas out to the public back in 1992, I ran into all this pressure and this negative feedback. And I could, right now you could say I'm getting negative feedback, but not a lot because I'm not reaching so many people. But back then I got a lot of negative feedback, and the pressure was getting to my heart. And I stayed awake and awake and awake because if I went to sleep, I couldn't control my breathing, and I was concerned about my safety. And then at a certain point, I couldn't last any longer, so I passed out and I had a near-death experience. And I was with my vision or my dream in the near-death experience was I was in a spaceship being sent off away from the Earth by those people that don't want a type of person like me around. I was sent off in a spaceship. Now, what the analogy is that spirits, to me, come from all over the universe, and they can go all over the universe, and that the analogy is that spirits probably do travel in groups, and are sent off to some new place where they, a lot of times where they're probably wanted more, or, pushed away from a place where they're not wanted. Well, I bailed out. I left because I don't give up. And so that's sort of like dreams at the most intense are going to be the dream centers alive and really functioning well when you have a near-death experience. Another type of dream I had, I did have another near-death experience later in which I was connected with the my mother's loving energy and all that good stuff. So I had a positive one too. And so like that sort of like would hold me into the world too, that I had that kind of positive energy that still wanted me to be here. Okay. And then another thing is one of the dreams I had when I was asking myself, well, why am I in this world that's so messed up? Why did I put myself in such a ridiculous position to be in this world? And so why was I born? And then I had this dream because I asked the question, I got the answer in the dream, and it said it represented how much my mother wanted me. She had, we had, I have an oldest brother, and then there were 4 sisters in a row, and then my mother wanted another boy, so that was important to her. And then she had a number of miscarriages, and also she was concerned that I wouldn't survive. And of course, I was premature, and I was born natural childbirth, and I might have just died on the spot. Medicine doesn't always notice, weak hearts or neurological problems. So it might have, the body I chose may have died on the spot, but obviously my spirit decided that I was needed enough that it was worth taking over this body that wasn't, which was going to run into an awful lot of challenges in the course of the lifetime, but had great potential because of its uniqueness to do things that a lot of other people wouldn't be capable of because they would be distracted too much by being capable in other areas. When you have limitations, it makes a difference. So that was an interesting dream. And then when people die, you can have dreams too. You're talking about intense dreams in which you connect with the person after they die. And my brother died of an accident. I'm not going to go into the details because it was, it's not something I like to talk about as the details because I don't want the details to go all over the place right now. But anyway, my brother explained to me, how he felt about the accident, how he tried to make sure the accident didn't happen, but it happened anyway. And so I got that connection immediately after he died with him connecting with me. And of course, why would I get such a dream? Because I'm connected really well psychically. I was connected way back then. And I think it was 1986 that happened. And so that was, I wasn't as developed as I am now, but I was still pretty tuned in. I've always been pretty tuned in psychically. So that happened back then. And then I had a dream with my mother. My mother, I took care of her towards, a lot of the time in the last 6 months of her life, I had a lot to do with caretaking her. And she had dementia, so she had delusions and things, and she wasn't all there in a lot of ways. Well, I had a dream later in which I was connecting with her and talking with her, and I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you have recovered and your mind is back the way it used to be." And that was an interesting dream because that was sort of saying that she dumped her body, and in the process of dumping her body when she died, she dumped the burden, which is of having a mind that wasn't working. You get the burden of the body can be pretty bad when it gets old and worn out, and at a certain point you need to get rid of it because it's too much of a burden and it's not really worth. It's not functioning well enough to be worth the investment any longer. It's a cost-benefit thing. And so one of the things that sometimes people who have psychological problems, it's almost like the dream part of their being gets mixed up with their waking reality. And so they will tend to, and I mean, that can happen with psychics too. It gets mixed up, but they know what they're doing, and hopefully, and they will, interpret what they're picking up on the dream level while they are awake. But a lot of times, the people that have mental health problems are not tuned in very well spiritually, don't have much control of what's going on, and the dreams state will be interfering with the waking state and be making it very hard for them to cope properly with reality. And if negative energy gets involved, they can get very delusional. and can cause trouble. So, and that's why spiritual programming, how you program yourself and having the right spiritual theories that interface really well with reality is so important. Because even if you do get into an intense psychological state, which it makes it hard for you to connect with reality, you want to have spiritual theories that help you to connect with reality. Because when I had my near-death experiences, I also had psychological problems that were affecting me. And the thing that kept me from getting into trouble was I was looking and I said, I'm picking up on this, I'm picking up on that. It's not reliable. I better not trust it, even though um, sort of like it's affecting me, and it's sort of like saying the people creating a sort of paranoia where I'm misinterpreting reality. But I say I can't trust how I'm interpreting reality because my mind's not working properly. So I was able to have a detachment factor that helped me to deal with it. Um, so I've experienced a lot of things myself personally, and of course that may take away my objectivity to a certain degree, but at the same time, sometimes you do have to experience things personally because you have to have been there. You have to be able to relate to it. Like you can be objective, but you have to be able to relate. If you haven't had experiences of one type, you only can relate to them if you have had experiences that are similar emotionally and intense in another area, so you can transfer it. But if you have nothing you can relate to, it doesn't work very well. And sometimes you have to experience it directly, and then later on, when you're away from it, when you're not in the state anymore, you can figure it out. And of course, I learned a lot since 1992, and that was a real hard lesson to learn. That I was not as capable as I thought I was, but that's why I am who I am today, because that's what drove the spiritual pioneer to really say, I have to really change. I can't trust what's out there spiritually. I have to go outside the box, and I have to, make a tremendous effort to do something. The world's not going to be straightened out very easily, and I have to handle a lot more pressure. So that's what, though, again, and one of the things about dreams is when you're talking about analogies, you have the psychic attacks where, or personal invasions, where invasive spiritual energy, usually abusive spiritual energy, if you're connected to abusive people, um, you'll have you'll be sleeping and your house will be invaded, or perpetually your personal space, your bedroom will be invaded, or things will happen, and that will tell you that you're connected with energy that's not that friendly to you, that's trying to control you or do you harm or manipulate you. And so a lot of dreams, and they'll have symbols. Sometimes snakes will be around, and sneaky snakes are coming, and you got to be careful because there are these people that work sort of like behind the scenes and don't let you know their true motive. They're sly like a snake. So there's all kinds of images they use, and there's your personal space. When that tells you a lot. I even had I didn't have a dream, but I had a vision, which is similar to a dream, where an arrow was shot at me recently, and I just took my hands and made a few movements real quick like that, and I got rid of it because I'm not a person that's going to be easily affected by a psychic attack. Not the way I'm trained. You train my way, you're pretty strong. You get confidence. It's like being a runner, and your confidence when you get involved in a race that you can handle it. You get a confidence that comes with it. But you don't get overconfident because you know the spiritual is very tricky. It's hard to pin down, and you're never going to get a complete handle on it. And if you think you have a complete handle on it, you're in trouble, because that's when you're too overconfident. Because as spiritual, you never can get a real complete handle. You do the best you can. Now, some people are into controlling their dreams. You can have out of the body experiences, and an out of body experience um, does happen to a degree, and it can happen to various degrees. It depends, but you're always going to be connected with your body to some extent. Just like when you have a near-death experience, you don't totally leave your body, but enough of yourself leaves your body that you get a totally different perspective. And that happens also in dreams, where you can have out-of-the-body experiences. You can have all kinds of psychic things happen. You can connect. You can sort of like remote viewing. All kinds of stuff can happen, and you can test it and see how accurate it is. And sometimes it can be really accurate, and sometimes it may be all pretty much the dream just felt real, but it wasn't accurate at all. So you really have to check things out. You don't know. And the images used in dreams, as I've said, can come from movies, can come from all kinds of things. And when people see things a lot of the times and it's foggy or it's hazy when they're awake and something's not that clear, their imagination will get involved and they'll see what they want to see. And that's, and that's where the dream type energy comes into waking reality. And a lot of times the reliability of people when it comes to its witnesses is very much affected by the spiritual programming, because under pressure in intense situations, people will have a tendency to let their biases or whatever, their spiritual program distort reality. You have to have the cool, calculated, reliable witness that has been trained to look for what counts, to really get accurate information on what's going on in this world. There's an awful lot of messed up sources that basically are using, their inner spiritual programming is distorting reality, and then they write books and they're on the internet and people buy into it. And you got to be careful about that. There's all kinds of crazy, wild stuff out there that does not interface with reality, that distorts reality, that's one-sided, that demonizes one side and goes to the other side, where you have to basically find the truth in the complicated middle. Most of the time, that's where it is. And a lot of people can't deal with the complicated middle, so they tend to go to one extreme or the other extreme, and they tend to be dismissive of those on the other side. And they'll develop a conspiracy theory where they demonize and they make one side out to be doing all kinds of terrible things, which they're not even able to do anyway, because they're not competent enough to pull off the things that they imagine. And people that have conspiracy theories, I'm sure they come into their dreams a lot, and they have these real intense type dreams that show their slant on reality. Interfacing with reality is very important spiritually, and reality is the physical reality we're in right now that challenges us and can bring out the most in us, because the physical reality is resistant. That's what the definition of physical reality, and it's very vital to the human spirit, that it has something to challenge it, has something to provide adventure, to prove itself, to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, something to challenge it, it wouldn't exist, because nothing exists without a purpose. Okay, so I feel like I've covered dreams to a considerable degree here. I just look up Astrogoodwin on the internet, Astrogoodwin Dreams, or just look up Astrogoodwin and you'll find all kinds of stuff on the spiritual. I haven't been fooling around. I may not have gotten much of this to reach a lot of people, but that's why I need people to spread the word about Positive Vibes Enterprise and what we're trying to do. Maybe most people are not activistic enough when it comes to the spiritual, because they have sort of like given up or just got locked in to the prevailing spiritual status quo. But I need activists. I need people that want to make a difference, want to change this world, and are willing to make the effort and willing to deal with the intense emotions required in order to bring change to this world. And the spiritual is powered by emotions, and we can't change things unless we have emotions that are intense, as the resistance is out there when it comes to the problems that are there. The problems have strong emotions related to them, and you have to be able to handle those emotions. This is Positive Vibes Enterprise. The subject today has been dreams. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and please get the word out.